Nemesis Sensei Chapter 4. Surprise Peach and Bullet Train were meditating in uniform, feeling out and exploring their powers in their minds. An unpleasant flower smell made her nose wrinkle. Why did some flowers stink like that? She felt herself finding the offending flower, and then willing it to change. And now it had a lovely perfume. If she could do that, imagine what else she could do. She returned to her meditation, clearing her mind and hoping Bullet Train would have a similar epiphany about his own gifts. He was really her friend, unlike Oni Girl, who only recently figured out why being a team was something that took a bit of work. She was too much of a loner. Deep breath, empty the mind. Nope. She was done for the day. She unfolded her legs from the lotus position, making sure that her skirt didn't reveal too much, and moved to a bench to wait for Bullet Train. He probably hadn't noticed how she'd changed that flower. She looked around the garden. She saw a small persimmon tree. Persimmons are so sour. Surprise Peach hated sour fruit, and so she reached out her consciousness into the tree, and she changed it. It would give sweeter fruit in the future. The thought came to her, this is nice, but what actual use is it? Could she better weaponize her power in some way? Bullet Train finally moved out of position, and he looked around for her. Any luck? She asked. He shook his head discouragingly. Maybe Pivot Sensei will have ideas. When's our next training session? She asked him. He shrugged. Hiroi Sensei hasn't said. Maybe Oni Girl can remind him he has promised to teach us. Oops. Maybe Hiroi Sensei is still hurt. Still, it wouldn't hurt to ask Oni Girl, she said. They left the shrine, thanking the Shinto priest as they went, and then they waited at the bus stop. There, Surprise Peach texted Oni Girl. Can you ask Hiroi Sensei when we'll train again? She responded, Sure, but he's having some personal issues from his past that need to be sorted out, Oni Girl replied. Or I'll sort them for him, Megumi thought, but did not say. She then sent a direct message to Wolfgal on Twitter. Listen, I know that you and Pivot and Craftsman have a thing. Your thing is not allowed to interfere with my thing. Also, if you hurt them, I will crush you without mercy. Wolfgal replied almost immediately. Let the adults handle things between themselves, schoolgirl. But I promise not to hurt them. Not that I owe you anything. Ooh, that bitch! Pivot is mine. You backstabbed him. I don't know what trick you've pulled, but I'll find out. And when I do, you will pay, Megumi replied. He was mine long before he was yours. I've got 5 years seniority. But there's no reason we can't share. Haven't I been a good friend, telling you what he likes? I'm making you into a better girlfriend, Wolfgal sent her. Your suggestions have frustrated things. He's upset that you blabbed private things to me, and we are in a very... Well, our relationship is stronger because it's based on respect. Is it stronger, sweetie? I wonder. I wonder about you and my Pivot a lot lately. Do you know that he has a mother complex? And then things clicked into place. His mother was the first woman to abandon him. And then every other woman in his life had left him as well. I understand so clearly now. How do you do that? Make people stop being mad at you? Would you believe psychology? I reminded you of what we had in common, and then I redirected your thinking after establishing that I was an us rather than a them. Do you love him? There was a wait. It drew out. You won't believe me, but yes, I did something awful back then. I was on a self destructive course, and I didn't care who went down with me. I have changed. I understand the wrongs I did, and I regret those actions. I understand about loyalty. Lone wolves are a romantic notion, but they always die, and die alone. Promise you won't take him from me, Megumi sent, and she was crying now. Sweetie, I can't take him from you. He doesn't work that way. He stays until you leave, because he's convinced that everyone will. We'll have to prove him wrong, won't we? How can you be so sure? Psychology. I've read a lot trying to figure out my own crazy head. Friends? Of course. And then Megumi was smiling. Things would work out fine. She filled a need Hiroi had that Wolfgal never could. And he was the only man in Megumi's life, and that made her his anchor. Wolfgal was just a friend with benefits. Megumi finished her homework and put her phone away. Rule number one. Shinichi could not believe his eyes when he woke up. Emmy was right there. It hadn't been a dream. Emmy never stayed before. He was afraid to touch her, thinking it would break whatever spell he was under. Emmy was beautiful, smart, sexy, and now maybe even sane. And she stayed now, too. He had to make sure she stayed medicated, though. Hmm. Careful, Four Eyes. Careful. He climbed out of bed and lit a cigarette. Emmy didn't mind his smoking, but she woke up. Hmm. That orange smell. It always makes me think of you, she said with a smile. Sorry to wake you, he said. Oh, I've been awake, Shin. I was just daydreaming. You, me, Hiroi, never having to work again. Able to play and make toys and not worry about bills? He asked her. She nodded and then stretched. She was still naked and everything. He nearly cried. Please tell me that I'm not dreaming now. She rolled over to be closer to him and reached out for him. Shin, I'm here. Touch me, she said gently. A smile would have made him think she was making fun of him. He nervously inhaled on his cigarette and then reached out with his left hand to touch her kinky hair. He gratefully ran his fingers over her curls. He remembered then to exhale. You're really back, he said. Emmy stood, a goddess of the morning. I'm really back, and I won't hurt you ever again. It's the three of us again. I already brought Hiroi back into the pack, she said and caressed his chin where his only facial hair grew. He always comes first, doesn't he? Shin asked wistfully. Oh no, I took you to bed first, remember? He couldn't even tell the difference. He didn't know and he didn't care. You were my first. She traced her finger down his chest. Hiroi and his mommy issues is more high maintenance. Shin-chan can handle himself just fine, Emmy said, puffing up his vanity. Shin tamped out his cigarette and put it away for later. You've got a plan, he stated. She kissed his neck and then his ear. Emmy is always thinking. Shin knows that. Take your meds yet today? She looked at the clock. It's time. Hold that thought. Emmy pulled a bag of pills from a pouch under her utility belt and picked out two. This pentagonal shaped one is an antipsychotic. This blue oblong one is a mood stabilizer, she said. He nodded and watched her dry swallow the pills. Shin could never do that comfortably. She smiled. See? I'm responsible and giving full disclosure. I'm stable now. Do you want to hear about my plan? They moved to the living room and sat on the plush stools, both of them still naked. Emmy told him about her plan, and he decided he wanted no part of it. Listen, for one thing, Akane Musashido is my friend. For another, I will never get personal with the Bentengumi. Stealing merchandise is one thing, going after a home and personal property is unacceptable. That's a death sentence. Emmy frowned. Then she had a different idea. What if we just move into her house and mooch off of her? She suggested. No way. She's crazy in the tied me to a chair and threatened me with a scalpel sense. Then she made me pretend to go back in time to take her virginity before her brother while watching video of her brother doing it. Okay, you're crazy, but she's completely out of her mind. Not acceptable, he retorted. I guess I don't have a good idea, Emmy admitted. Megumi called Hiroi while he was working at home. Say, Hiroi sensei, when are we going to practice again? She asked when he answered the phone. Team practice or one on one? He asked. She heard him noisily typing. Team practice, naughty sensei, she said with a giggle. How about this coming Saturday? That's the art festival, practically all day long. Sunday, then. Sunday should be good. Then you can take me to see Mermaid Mountain. Is that the movie you picked? Isn't it a horror movie? Well, yeah, I'm very excited to see it. It's supposed to be romantic, too. Okay, then. She said goodbye before ending the call. Saturday is open, then. He texted Shinichi. Hey, is Looney Moons still with you? I'll tell her you called her that. No, she left after trying to convince me to rob Akane Musashido. I noticed trying in there. Yeah, hands off Akane. She's the little sister of a big Yakuza, the Iron Oyaji. You shitting me? Serious business. Really, really hands off. Hiroi realized he didn't have Emmy's cell number anymore. Hey, do you have Emmy's number? He asked in a text. Shit, no, came the reply. I don't trust that one bit. She seduces both of us, gets the band back together, leaves us no way to contact her directly, tries to convince you to move on the damned golden carp, and she antagonizes Entropos and Foxfire. This crap smells real treacherous and backstabby. Shinichi said nothing for a while, and then he texted, I want to trust her, bro. I know, bro, I know. She means a lot to both of us, but we cannot afford to be betrayed again, armor or no. I'm going to check on Akane. Wise? No, wise would be to put a tag on Emmy's ear. Hiroi laughed. Hiroi finished and sent his work. He shouldn't be needed at the office for maybe another week, barring an emergency. And he texted Eri. Hello, this is Hiroi Matsui. Can we meet this Saturday? Taro will be with his papa that weekend. Good timing. Great. Would you like to meet at Let's Super? I've never eaten there before. It sounds good. The waiters dress up like capes. I mean, Cosplayers. Sounds fun. 2 o'clock? It's a date. Cool. Hiroi decided that he could handle dating a woman with a kid. The fact that Eri was co parenting with Taro's papa did make things easier. Emmy was okay sharing with Megumi, but what would Eri think? She was normal. Masks had weird social behaviors, he knew that. And what if Eri was a traditionalist? He'd never dated a mundane like her. Hiroi went to a rowing machine that his father had owned since college. He turned the resistance up to the max and got to work. He heard his phone beeping. Hiroi ignored it. And then his phone rang, and the ringtone was an etude from the presets. He stopped rowing and then answered his phone. It was from an unknown number. Hi, I need you to pick me up from the police station. It was Emmy. Ukyo, can I borrow your car? He called out. Okay, Hiroi, she replied. I'm on my way, he told Emmy. Crap. Nothing good lasts. He packed up his uniform in his satchel, and he rushed to the police station address that the officer told him. He hoped wearing his work clothes would help smooth over whatever trouble Emmy had gotten into. The desk officer directed him to a room. That wasn't a good sign. Inside, Emmy was wearing a hospital gown. Hi, dear, she said and jumped up to reach for him, but she was handcuffed to her chair. The female officer in the room said, She claims you're her husband. Yes, ma'am. My wife is mentally ill. I apologize for the trouble. We picked her up nude sunbathing. Sorry, officer. Our honeymoon was at Brazil. I'll take her home. You'll need to pay a fine, the officer said, frowning. Of course. Can she come with us while I pay? He unbuttoned his jacket and slipped it around her shoulders. She whined like a dog. Make them take the cuff off me, Hiroi. I can't stand it, she pleaded. He hushed her. It's going to be okay, Emmy. The policewoman did unlock the handcuff and led them toward a desk. One thing about the Japanese criminal system, money solved almost anything. He paid the fine and apologized profusely, leading Emmy to the car. Where are your clothes? He asked as he helped her into the car. At home. I was only a short walk away, she replied. Did you take your meds today? I did. Shinichi watched me. Are your antipsychotics once daily? She slammed the heel of her palm to her forehead. No, I take one in the morning and one after lunch, always with food. She turned quickly to face him. Hey, Hiroi, I like pretending to be your wife. Can we get married? They won't let you marry both of us, and I won't do that to Shin, he replied, focusing on the drive. Where do you live anyway? He asked. At my old place in Bentencho. She gave him the address. I have the perfect solution, Emmy declared. I'm all ears, dear, he said dryly. First I marry you, then divorce you. Then I marry and divorce Shinichi. He had to laugh. That just puts us back at zero, he explained. No, listen. That way you both get to be my husband. Both my ex-husband, too, but we can just pretend the divorce has never happened and keep our marriage certificates and be married whenever we want, she said, pointing at him triumphantly. He shook his head. That's dishonest and probably illegal. It was Emmy's turn to laugh. She made a mask out of her hands, holding them over her face, and looked at him. Hello, she said, masked. Right. Professional masked criminals. You make a persuasive argument, Emmy, he had to admit. Hey, mask. That is not your mask, Wolfgal, he protested. It's a mask, so I'm Wolfgal. Aroo! They reached her home. It was the same house she had lived in all those years ago. You still live here? He asked. Yep, trust fund. Must be nice. Oh, shut up. You don't do it for the money either. He had to admit. You're right, I do it for the thrill and the challenge, but the money helps. Park your car, and I will give you a thrill, she said. After I watch you take your meds, he insisted. Yes, dear, she griped. He found a parking spot and followed her into her home. I still live alone, so don't you worry, she said, taking off the hospital slippers she had been wearing. He saw a tidy pile of those, stacked like a pyramid against the wall. He slipped off his work shoes. She left to take her medicine. He sat down, waiting for her to return with his jacket. She came back wearing nothing but an apron and a smile. Welcome home, dear. Do you want to eat or take a bath? Or maybe. And she pointed to her bosom, then laughed uproariously. Oh, I like being a wife. Take me to bed right now and call me wife like crazy. She took his hand in her two hands and tried to pull him toward her bedroom, presumably. No, Emmy, you aren't on your meds yet. It's not right, he said, shaking his head. Hiroi, I'm surprised at you. We have known each other for so long. We've had lots of very nice sex. And now you want to wait for my meds to take effect? She almost cried. Emmy, it's the only way to know I'm not taking advantage of you. You know one thing I'll never be is someone who takes advantage, he vowed. She sat down on his lap. Hiroi, I'm touched. Here, let me show you. She grabbed his hand and held it to her breast. See? Just like this. And then she slipped his hand under the apron, and she let out a sigh. He resisted the urge. Emmy, just wait 15 minutes and see if you still want to have sex then, okay? He pleaded. But Hiroi, we are husband and wife. That's just pretend, Emmy. We didn't get married. You just put on an apron and spouted cliches at me. She pouted. Emmy wants wife sex. She pulled his hand away and she folded her arms. I know, music. And she turned on her radio. Some pop singer was giving an interview to a DJ who clearly didn't care about what she had to say. Stupid radio! You're killing the romance in our marriage. She pushed buttons until a love song was playing. She released and turned to him, smiling shyly. Dear, it's our song. Sometimes, Emmy, I don't think you're crazy at all. Sometimes I just think you want to play pretend, but you're better at it than anybody can guess. In response, Emmy said, Dance with me. He remained sitting, so she stood and danced by herself, tantalizing him as peaks of her body showed from the apron as she moved. She didn't turn her back to him, though. Why? Hey, why won't you show me your back? Are you hiding something? He asked and tensed. No, dear, I'm not hiding anything. The apron effect only works from the front, is all, she explained. An awkward pause hung in their conversation, and she stopped dancing. Emmy took a deep breath. Hiroi, I'm frightened suddenly. Where are my clothes? Just in your bedroom, Emmy. Everything's okay, he said with a soothing tone in his voice. He was hoping that, anyway. She turned to walk to his bedroom, and true to her word, there was nothing behind her back. Emmy came back wearing a set of workout clothes, and she handed him his suit jacket. Do you still want wife sex? He asked. She smiled at him. If you want wife sex, you'll have to put a ring on it. Where's my ring, Hiroi? He laughed. Some other time, then? I hate for you to leave disappointed. Want to have bend me over the couch sex? She asked. I like having our relationship based on more than sex, no matter how nice it is. I'll see you around. But first, give me your phone number. She did. You promise you still like me? I promise I still like you, Emmy. He topped off the gas tank and returned home. I'm putting the keys on the hook by the door, Ukyo, he announced as he went to his room to change into his workout clothes once more. He expected to see another ex girlfriend on his bed, but he found his bedroom empty. Thank Moho. He checked the mysterious poster. Moho, is this your doing? He asked aloud. A large arm waved hello from the shadowed doorway of the cabana. Fair enough. You can chill at my place in this form, but don't you go imposing. And then he looked askance at his still empty bed. Whew! Miss Manta could fly. Would she show up next? He finished his workout. Shinichi went to the bookstore before he went to Akane's place. Mizuki happily helped him purchase Cyborg Gunslinger Ryan. The cover showed a man with 4 robotic arms, each of them holding a revolver firing lasers. How did that work? Hey, Mizuki, would you like to meet me for coffee sometime? She looked around before answering. Negazawa san, I have a girlfriend, she said quietly. Oh, I'm sorry. Have a nice day, he replied automatically and carried the book out. Maybe Akane would want to read it. He called Akane on his phone as he walked to the train station. She answered, Hello, Negazawa san. How are you? She was being formal. Fine, Musashi san. Can I visit you? Oh, um, well, hold on. Today would not be good. Another time, maybe. Sayonara. Akane hung up without another word. And that was making Shin's anxiety turn into full blown panic and paranoia. Akane must be in trouble. But what if it was just her brother visiting? Her brother. Alone, he was no match for a badass like Iron Oyaji, the iron plated Yakuza with golden carp. But he couldn't count on her to help. She probably wasn't in trouble. And who was he to want to avenge something from 30 years ago? Better to just go check on the network, log some hours in, and relax. And then he could get over embarrassing himself by not knowing that Mizuki was a lesbian. It's not as if they wore badges, right? It was an honest mistake. And at least he left before saying something humiliating. Well, he had Emmy, and Akane as well, he guessed. And what more could a guy want? He returned home and logged into the remote access network to run his diagnostics. He was still worried about Akane deep down, but she'd been masking since before he was born, and her powers were impressive. She could probably take out Iron Oyaji after all. His power didn't turn him into iron, it encased him in iron, and that was a very important distinction. She could turn his brain into chunky salsa with a touch. He finished the diagnostics and started looking for a new program to see if there were any new files or folders or anything out of the ordinary. So far, so good. Earning his paycheck. He'd hoped that Mizuki could have been a girlfriend for him. He banished the thought once more. He glanced at the stupid bag holding the stupid cyborg cowboy book. He logged off the network and started a new project, a harness with extra arms. thought activated. He could use it and sell the schematics to a medical equipment company. He'd be set for life and do good, which, while not his intent at all times, was a nice bonus. A guy couldn't be selfish about everything, after all. He even knew how to make the casing light and affordable. His, of course, would be durable and weapons grade. He didn't cackle much. Megumi found herself thinking about Wolfgal and Pivot. Was she really going to share him? Sure, she also had craftsmen, but she was a crazy traitor, and Hiroi had given in to her so easily. Sure, he was just a man, and Wolfgal was pretty and sexy, and used psychology on people. Okay. Megumi made up her mind. She forgave Hiroi. However, she'd figure out Wolfgal's plan. But these thoughts were quickly forgotten with the preparations for the arts festival. She also painted a paper fan with an Art Deco designs on it just for fun, but everyone really liked it. So they decided it would be included in the display that her class put together. And as she was riding the bus home, Megumi thought about her birthday. Soon she would be 19. She texted Hiroi. She told him when her birthday was. I'll do something that disappoints you, but the love will be there, he replied. You mean you love me? Using the definition that you established, yes, I love you, Megumi. Her heart felt like it was on fire. Yes, Hiroi was not very good looking. Yes, he was a jerk. Yes, he was a criminal. And he had sex with Wolfgal, but he never promised her he would be exclusive. Hiroi loved her. After they got married, he wouldn't want Wolfgal anymore. Right to her face, he'd said Oni Girl was better. Right to her face. And she grinned in a malicious triumph. Megumi knew she was not pretty, and she was built like a brick, but Hiroi loved her. She didn't think he was joking when he said he would disappoint her. Surely he just lacked confidence in himself, and he would do just fine. After all, Megumi considered herself a practical and simple sort of girl, with basic wants and needs. Besides, his stepmom owned a jewelry store. Surely Ukyo-san wouldn't let him screw up a gift for her birthday. And at that time, Hiroi was watching Dragonfly Warrior versus Spider Queen with the sound turned off. He remembered how Megumi had reacted, cheering for Spider Queen. Maybe Megumi was a do-gooder because she felt like it was expected of her. And why else had she chosen him? Plenty of other masks were strong, but he was a villain and related to her swimming coach and the owner of her favorite jewelry store. Did she want him to sway her to become bad? Was their relationship a battle to decide both of their alignments? Or did she really not think of that? Did she actually have no intention of saving him or of him corrupting her? He wished she were there so that they could make love. He made do on his own. Spider Queen was hot. What was he going to do for Megumi's birthday present, though? He couldn't ask Emmy. She would recommend something insane. Ukyo would know. After cleaning up and rubbing on some hand sanitizer, he went to ask for her advice. But Ukyo was out. Maybe she was still at work. He texted her, Hi, are you at the store, Ma? She didn't reply right away, so she must be busy, he decided, and put away his phone. Normally, Hiroi always had something to do, but nothing interested him, and he was all alone. So he goofed off on Twitter. He'd been completely ignoring Mask Twitter sometimes. So he posted, Oni Girl and Wolf Gal, what more could a mask want? Pivot is on top of the game, boys and girls. And Supa Foxy replied, You can arch me anytime, Pivot. Clearly ignoring her was not working. Hey, I'm flattered, really, but you don't want any part of this, he replied. And then Wolfgal chimed in, Supa Foxy, you are far away from your playground. Stick to the boys at Cape Town and you'll be much happier. Hashtag Aru. And he replied to Wolfgal, Thanks, love. Hashtag Aru. Craftsman then chimed in, Hey, Supa Foxy, did you know that arching means fighting? It's not mask code for sex. Supa Foxy tweeted, OMG! Pivot, I'm sorry. I meant to say I like you. It's okay. I have two super girlfriends, though. Better luck with Cape Boys. And from another perspective, Twitter exploded with people just tweeting out the Aru hashtag. Bet old Wolfgal hadn't expected that to happen. And Craftsman tweeted out, So happy Wolfgal is back in my life. Hashtag Aru. Garukatsu replied, Wolfgal is dating both of you? Wow. Craftsman replied, Yep, we've been special friends since high school. All three of us the whole time. And Wolfgal replied, Lol, wouldn't you if you could have them both? And that made Hiroi feel very good. And where was Oni Girl in all this? And almost as if he summoned her, Oni Girl tweeted, If you want a piece of pivot, you gotta get past Wolfgal and me. And then she tweeted, Hashtag sharing is caring, right? Hashtag Aru. Wolfgal then replied, Happy to share my pivot with a super mask like Oni Girl. She's so good for our man. Surprise Peach then tweeted, Oni Girl, you never told me you were taking Wolfgal's sloppy seconds. Hashtag gross. Oni Girl replied, Hashtag so jelly. You told me that you wish you were with someone who is as hot as Pivot. And Wolfgal replied to that, Lol, who the hell is Surprise Peach? And why is she picking a fight with me? Hashtag Aru. Onigel replied, Surprise Peach, better apologize and back away. You just insulted her man and her Eskimo sister, and her. Surprise Peach replied, You guys are all weird and gross. Wolfgal replied, All right, you screwed up now. Time and place, Peachy. Hashtag Aru. Pivot interjected, Easy, love. Surprise Peach is just a kid. She doesn't know better. Surprise Peach replied, I'm not going to fight you because of Twitter. Chill out. Wolfgal was having none of it. I'll find you, Peachy. I'll beat you down and make you humble, she replied. You attend Kakiteru High School, right? She added. Onigirl replied, Stop right there, gal. Duels and sparring are one thing. You will not attack my teammate cold. Pivot added, I have to stop you too, love. I won't let you attack her when she doesn't want to fight you. She's my pupil and she's still at school. Wolfgal replied, Surprise, Peach, you better thank my pack. They just saved you a world of hurt. That's my bay. You're better than that, Pivot said. You're wrong, but I love you so much for thinking that of me. My place or yours, right now, and I'll be all over you, she replied. He smiled and then he replied, You know my rule, no meds, no sex. Taking them right now. I'll be ready when you come in to break in my bed. Aroo. He checked his schedule. It was all clear. So he checked the route map and he set out. He would reach Emmy's apartment in time for her meds to have taken effect and hopefully still find her affectionate. So he texted Emmy, I'm on my way, love. Please hold on to that feeling. You're a classy and dignified babe. Emmy read his text and she glowed with admiration. Yes, I want to rub my body all over you and get my scent on you and love you thoroughly, she replied. He felt as eager as he had years ago. She made him feel young. She still wanted him when he arrived. Fade out. I know I want to stay, he told her afterward. I want you to stay. When will you have to leave, though? Emmy asked. Tomorrow afternoon at the latest. Well, good. Let's talk like we used to do. You mean talk about what we want from life? Sort of. I want you to talk about what you want from wife, she said. You were serious earlier when I drove you from the police station? He asked. Yes, I really was. I mean, don't get all hung up on the divorce. That's just a legal hassle for my plan to work. How about if we move in together? I don't know if I'd like that, he admitted. Well, tell me why. I'm okay with sharing, but I don't think I'd like hearing you and Shin having sex. The thought makes me feel weird. Also, even though we're best friends, we fight a lot. Emmy pondered his words. Wow, very serious and valid points. I do get noisy with sex, and me and Shin play games and stuff too. As for your fights, I think I will be a calming influence on both of you like we used to be. And since between me and Megumi, you boys will be very sexually fulfilled, we'll also we'll live together and we'll help each other out with the problems of life. And you'd never go off your meds with both of us reminding you. Yes, she said and gave him a kiss. And you can have Megumi live with us too. And between all four of us, our bills will be quite taken care of, and we'll be able to have more fun. I imagine us going on fishing trips, making love on the open water, under the clouds, under the stars, and me grilling up fish over a hibachi on the campfire and feeding my men morsels like in movies. What about Megumi? She can feed you too. How do you feel about hearing or seeing me make love to Megumi? Emmy paused. Well, I guess I'd like to watch, learn from her, and teach her. It would be a new kind of sharing. Oh, I want to see your face when you do her. Call her, send her a taxi, and get her here. Do her right here on my bed. And she began to kiss and caress him passionately. I don't know how she'd feel about that. We've only been dating a few weeks, he said, returning her kisses. Okay, listen. The only way to find out is to ask her. Let me ask her, Emmy said eagerly. She took his phone and she called Megumi. Hi, this is Emmy. I'm Wolfgal. Yes, he's at my apartment, and we want you to come visit. I want to send a cab for you. Oh, yes, please. Dress sexy for Hiroi, okay? And I'll order us a pizza. See you soon, Eskimo sister. She hung up Hiroi's phone and picked up her own, dropping his on his chest. She ordered the taxi and gave her payment information. At what point did I lose control here? Hiroi asked as she hung up on the taxi company. She smiled down at him like a benevolent goddess. Love, control is a delusion. Making decisions and choices is not the same as control. Now, let me lick you clean so we can get dressed. You brought your uniform? He nodded and then gasped as she cleaned him up. She giggled. Emmy put on an evening gown, forest green and thin strapped. Very important question, Hiroi began, pulling on his pants. Yes? Emmy asked, brushing her hair. Have you mentioned your plan to Shinichi yet? No, but I figure since you're the high maintenance one, if I get you on board, he'll come along more easily, especially if Megumi joins up to keep you occupied. She began putting on makeup. Why put on makeup if we're going to stay here? So Megumi won't feel overdressed. Your second question is yes, you are high maintenance. Hiroi pulled on his shirt. He didn't like the thought that crazy Emmy thought that he was high maintenance. Emmy put on some earrings. Listen, Hiroi, it's okay. You're worth it. She touched his cheek and then sighed. The love in your eyes at the slightest praise makes me melt, my Hiroi. Oh, my love, my special friend, my only pivot. She blew him a kiss and then ordered the pizza. Hiroi put on his mask and became Pivot instead. Pivot and Megumi hadn't made love yet. He was eager to do that. But then Emmy wanted to see his face. But what if Megumi didn't want to make love with Emmy watching? What if she didn't want to stay there at all? Easy, Pivot. Easy. You simply cannot plan ahead for something like this, my purple helmeted warrior. And he laughed at himself. She laughed too, hearing him laugh. The point is, you should relax, Emmy insisted. No matter what, we will have a good time. Pivot nodded at her. How well she knew him. Why the nude sunbathing? He asked. More freckles. You like my freckles. Her curly hair waved as she whirled in place, smiling. I like you liking my freckles. Shinichi doesn't care either way, so it's win-win. Pivot ran his fingers through her kinky curly hair. I adore your freckles, your curly hair. She hugged him close. Thank you. I adore everything about you. You are my friend, my lover, my partner, even my victim. You are my everything, Pivot, my equal in all things. I love your thinky brain. I love your strong muscles. And I love that you forgave me. And you love me enough to not take advantage of me. They stood in each other's arms, remembering their times and their time apart and thinking of their mutual admiration. Emmy, what if I'm afraid? Pivot asked. Fear is natural. Remember, you're not alone, Emmy said, smiling gently. And then there was a knock at the door. Megu's here early, Pivot cheered. Emmy opened the door. It was just some religious people. Emmy politely refused and bid them to have a nice day. That reminds me, in all that's been happening, I met a real god, Hiroi said. Emmy slumped against the door. Is this a joke because I'm too sexy for jokes right now? Emmy retorted. Seriously, Emmy, Megumi met him too. King Moho, the Hawaiian god of steam, Hiroi said. Oh, I bet he's fun. At least you didn't say Jesus. What's wrong with Jesus? Oh, nothing. Just the thou shalts kind of put us in a bad position with his religion, Emmy said. Yeah, that's a good point. I remember thou shalt not steal was a big one. So tell me about your friend, the god of steam. Well, he helped me get Harumi to leave me alone and helped me find Megumi and even brought you back. Emmy laughed. Well, he never said anything to me, so we can scarcely leave that last one out of his deeds. Pivot had to smile too. Well, he's pretty cool. He described all of his interactions with King Moho. I was agnostic before, just sort of doing the Shinto thing on holidays, but now I guess I'm a Moho worshiper. I mean, he talked to Megu and everything, Pivot said. I believe you, Emmy said. And then there was another knock on the door. Emmy jumped away from the door. That better be Megumi or pizza, Emmy said. It was Megumi, escorted by the white gloved taxi driver, who held out a plastic tray with a receipt on it. Emmy signed the receipt and returned the pen and the tray to the driver, who bowed before leaving. Emmy pulled Megumi inside. Hiroi didn't have time to dress up, so Pivot came to visit Megu-chan, Emmy explained. Pivot was staring at Megumi. She was wearing a white dress that draped over her. It showed off her muscles, which were impossible to hide, really, but it also had an enhancing effect on her femininity. She was wearing the earrings that she had bought from Ukyo's store, and her makeup was perfect. You look stunning, Megumi, Pivot said. Thank you, Pivot. And you look lovely, Emmy, Megumi said, with admiration in her voice. She removed her shoes with her hands one at a time. They gathered in the living room, and Emmy turned on some different music. So tell me about yourself, my Eskimo sister, Megumi said. Emmy smiled. Well, I was born in Roppongi. My father is a cabinet member, and my mother was a hostess, and now she's a trophy wife. I tried to go to college and art school after I robbed and betrayed Pivot and Craftsman. I think I wanted to be an architect for a while, but I'm not good at sitting still long enough. And then I tried to be a fashion designer, but I don't get along well with people. Well, worse than other designers, I mean. And then I tried just being a visual artist, but I'm okay. But, well, I quit. So I went back to the beginning. Now I'm starting over and making things right. Emmy had gotten morose, but then she brightened. Tell me about how you betrayed the boys, Megumi said. Emmy shook her head again and again. No, no, no. I won't talk about that. I hurt people I love. Bad reasons. Bad reasons, Emmy said, closing her eyes, shaking her head. No, no. Bad reasons? Pivot asked, and Emmy began to cry. No good reason. Not one. She wailed and wrapped her arms around Pivot, sobbing and kissing his mask. I made scars on the bodies I love so much, so well, and can only beg forgiveness. Pivot held Emmy and Megumi by their hands. I forgive you, Emmy. We all have our regrets. I love you. I love you too, Pivot. Sorry, Megumi, I didn't want to lay that on you, Emmy said. Pivot gave Megumi a kiss through his mask. I love you, Megumi, he said. Go ahead and kiss him, Emmy urged, wiping her eyes. I invited you over so that we can get this all worked out. Megumi gave her a smile, and then she kissed Pivot's mask. There, Megumi said. What do we need to work out? And then the doorbell rang. Pizza! sang Emmy, and she danced to the door. Pizza, pizza, she sang. She opened the door and signed the receipt. Thank you, pizza friend. May you find love, she sang as she took the boxes of pizza and closed the door with her hip. She set the boxes on her small table and grabbed some paper plates and a roll of paper towels. Come and eat, my loves, Emmy said, gesturing at her table. They commenced feasting. Masks tend to have big, big appetites. After pausing to drink a grape soda, Emmy said, So I have this scheme. Megumi looked at Hiroi, who had removed his mask to eat, and he nodded at her. I love my men so much, but plural marriages are not legal in Japan. But I want to marry them both. But I want Hiroi to be happy with you too. But I want us to live together. But I want us to be comfortable, but not have to work hard or break too many laws. Emmy continued. So I am going to marry and divorce each of them. That way, I get to be married to Hiroi and Shinichi, and then if you want, you can marry Hiroi, and you can stay married. Emmy smiled and nodded as she finished. Megumi choked, but recovered. So, you think I want to marry Hiroi? She asked. I know you do, Emmy replied. Hiroi looked down and said, If you want to, I would like that. We could get a house in the country. Megumi looked at each of them. It's so crazy. Emmy nodded. Shin and Hiroi share me. Me and Megumi share Hiroi. We all pool our money, and we live happy and pursue our hobbies, and, well, that's it. Shin and me both can do our work at home most of the time, Hiroi agreed. Megumi almost spoke, and then shut her mouth and was quiet for a while. What do we do while I'm at college? She asked finally. The men will work and save money. I'm sure Shin can sell some patents or something, and then I'll take care of feeding everyone, Emmy said. I mean, relationship, Megumi clarified. Oh, well, I thought I'd marry and divorce Hiroi first so that he's free to marry you when you're ready, Emmy explained. Emmy did have a good plan, don't you think? Now, I think you and Pivot need to have your first dance. It's a beautiful song, Emmy said. Hiroi smiled and stood up. He held out his hand with a flourish, and then he pulled his mask back on. Shall we dance? He asked as Pivot. Megumi wiped her hands and patted her lips clean. She took Pivot's hand and walked with him back to the living room with Pivot. Neither of them had been very good dancers, but they swayed together. We can pretend that this is prom, like a movie, Emmy said, and she dimmed the lights and she smiled at them. Look at my Pivot and Megumi. We'll be so happy together. Megumi pulled Pivot's mask away and she kissed him on the lips. Where have you been all my life? She asked. I was looking for you, he said. Emmy slipped an arm around each of them, slippery as an eel. Don't want to be creepy, but I really want to watch you two get busy. I want to learn from you and teach you and check out your hot bod, Emmy said. Megumi gave a small scream. You want to watch? What do you think I am? Megumi asked. Hot as Spider Queen, Pivot said. Wait, you want to do this? He nodded eagerly. Megumi broke the embrace and took a few steps away, and then stopped. You seriously think I'm as hot as Spider Queen? Or are you just trying to push my buttons? She asked. Pivot replied by holding out his arms. I want my Megumi. I want your strong arms around me. I love you, he said then. Megumi looked down at her dress and ran her hand down the length until it split by her thigh. She touched her hard muscles underneath it. She smiled. Okay, let's give Wolfgal a show, Megumi said. Oh, you want me to watch in uniform? Megumi asked. Emmy asked. If Pivot's in uniform, I want Wolfgal to watch me work it. I'm gonna make my Pivot say, Wolf who? Megumi laughed in victory then. Emmy laughed too and ran to change. Start without me, but don't strip until I'm there. Aroo! Pivot caressed her back and kissed her tan neck through his mask and squeezed her firm flesh. She squealed. Megumi wrapped a powerful leg around his waist and said, "You're in my power now, Pivot. Beg for mercy from Megumi." "I can't escape. What will become of me, Megumi?" She gave his chest a kiss. "I don't hear any begging," she said. "Please be merciful," he pleaded. "You can beg better than that, Pivot, you fiend." Pivot kneeled and kissed the thigh that had been wrapped around him and now rested on his shoulder. Megumi sighed. "Beg, Pivot, or I'll have to crush you like an egg." "Spare my life," he cried, and kissed her leg again, and slipping his head under her dress. Pivot lightened Megumi's weight and lifted her up with one arm. "I feel so light, like a bird," Megumi said, gasping in delight. "It's so nice like this when we aren't sparring." "Aru, what have we here?" Wolfgal demanded. "Pivot, who is this woman?" Pivot stood up and slipped Megumi's dress up over her head as he rose. Wolfgal whistled. "The yellow looks nice against your tan skin," she said admiringly. "This is my lover, Wolfgal. Her name is Megumi," Pivot said, proud. "You said she was better than me. Prove it. Prove it right on my bed. Aroo!" Wolfgal demanded, and then she howled again. Pivot carried Megumi to Emi's bed as Wolfgal cheered and howled, and Megumi found it quite exciting to be cheered on by a beautiful and sexy woman. Who can say that you have a friend who told them how good they are at making love? Megumi can. Fade out. Megumi giggled as Wolfgal rubbed her furry mask against her shoulder. "That was so hot. Can I have a turn?" Wolfgal asked. Megumi laughed, filled with goodwill. "If you can get him up, you can have a turn." Pivot was naked but for his mask, resting his head on Megumi's chest. Wolfgal ran her fingernails slowly up Pivot's spine. "Pivot, it's my turn," she breathed into his ear. "You must please Wolfgal if you ever want to escape, Pivot," Megumi said. Pivot shuddered and sighed, and Megumi felt his penis begin to move against her abs. "Pivot, it's my turn," Wolfgal breathed again, this time running her nails across his abdomen. "Aroo," Pivot said. "It's like magic." Fade out. Again. Sorry. Wolfgal lay on Pivot's chest then, laughing as Megumi tickled her. "This was so much fun," Megumi said. "Why don't more people do this?" They they get hung up on what's proper," Wolfgal said, laughing as she answered. Pivot was almost insensate. He pulled his mask off, breathing heavily, his eyes glazed over. Each woman curled up on either side of him. Atop one of his arms, Wolfgal pulled off her mask. "So, Hiroi, which of us is better?" Megumi asked. "There's no right answer. You're cheating," he replied. "I took you to heaven, didn't I?" Megumi asked. "Yes, I'm in heaven. A beautiful woman in each arm, and as satisfied as a man can be," Hiroi replied. "Liar. Thanks for calling me beautiful, though," Megumi replied. Wolfgal pulled the blanket up over them all. "I'm in love. I never believed in love until you two," Hiroi said, kissing each woman. He breathed a deep sigh, and then he fell asleep. Should I be pleased or offended? Megumi asked Emmy. You totally subdued and conquered your mentor. Be proud, girl, Emmy replied. Well, you helped, Megumi said. Megu, you are somebody really special. You know that? How so? Even in triumph, you share the glory. Also, you're totally hot and buff. I love your bod. I love your bod. Your pale skin, your big boobs, your curvy butt, and your curly hair. Oh, let's just agree that we're both hot because he's completely under our spell, Emmy said. Megumi had to smile. Okay, Emmy, you win. We're both hot. I decided I like sharing him with you. We can definitely be happy together, I think. Pivot, craftsman, and now Oni girl too. Wolf Gal would be unstoppable. Emmy smiled a secret smile. What's that grin? Megumi asked with a grin of her own. I'm just so happy to find out that you're such a sweet person, Emmy replied, and then carefully pulled away to get some more food. It had been a rich, full day, and the best was yet to come. Everything was falling into place. It was perfect.